Hello and welcome to this video. In the last video, we learned how to install Rust on our computer. We also installed Visual Studio Code and the Rust extension that is meant to help us when writing our Rust source code using the Visual Studio Code editor. In this video, let's start off by paying our due respect to the tradition of the Hello World application, because why not? Okay, so I'm going to create a folder here, and I'm using the terminal to do this, but feel free to use point and click. So I'm going to call the folder Rust-tat for Rust tutorials, and I'm going to cd into that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a file called main.rs. The rs is the extension for Rust files, okay? And I'm calling it main because it is the entry point of my program. It is not a requirement by Rust, but conventionally, that is what we do. So I'm going to create a file called main.rs, and I'm going to open that file in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so this is my main.rs, and it says some Rust component not installed. So this is what I mentioned in the previous video, that we have installed a part of the extension in VS Code, but once we actually start using it, it will know which one has not been installed and it will prompt us. So now it wants us to install the Rust language server, which is actually another tool that helps it to do its work. So as you can see, it is downloading RLS, which is Rust language server, and don't worry about this, we will talk about it in the next video. Okay, so now Rust component are successfully installed. Let's write our first program. So every Rust application that is meant to be run has to have the main function like it is in other programming languages. And the main function takes no parameter and it returns no parameter. Technically, it does, but we'll get into those details. So the fn here is required. That is how you declare functions in Rust. Fn, and then you bring the name of the function. And if the function takes parameters, in this case, it doesn't, so we leave our braces empty, and sorry, our brackets empty, and then you have your opening and closing braces to delimit the body of the function. Now, in the traditional Hello World application, what we do is to print out Hello World, which is a good way for us to verify that the setup of our toolchain is working correctly. So, to print out something in Rust, you use a macro, and I will tell you the difference between macros and functions here, but we'll get into the details later. So basically, a macro looks like a function, but a macro, instead of resulting in a function call, actually result in code substitution. If this is too technical for you at this point, it doesn't really matter yet. We'll have a whole session where we talk of macros and how to create your own macro. So this is our complete Hello World application. And remember that in Rust, statements ends with semicolon. We have different types. We have expressions as well, and we'll talk about them later. Okay, so now I have my main.rs here. The next thing we have to do is to compile our application and get the runnable or the executable which we can execute. To build, we have to call the rustc, which is Rust compiler, and we give it the Rust file that we want it to build. And at this point, it is doing its work. And this is one of the, I don't want to say downside, because it has to be so that Rust is what it is. You can see that the compilation time is considerably significant compared to other programming languages out there. But once you get to understand what the compiler does internally, you appreciate that it took that amount of time to actually finish compiling. Okay, so if I check the files in there, now you can see that we have main file. If it was on a Windows computer, you will see main.exe, but on a Macintosh, it just calls it main. And so we're going to run this by doing / and then main, and you can see that it has printed out hello world beautifully for us. So this is how simple it is to get started writing applications in Rust. And in the next video, we will talk of a more conventional tool that helps you to structure your project properly. And the name of that tool is Cargo. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.